This is Leader Time by FedNet, your podcast source for remarks by Senate Majority Leader John Thune and Democratic Leader Chuck Schumer on the Senate floor during the 119th Congress. On March 27th, Thune discussed building out broadband in rural America and a related nomination. The following material is protected by copyright.
Mr. President, broadband deployment has long been a priority of mine. It's something that's important to my home state of South Dakota, where many rural communities still lack access to a reliable internet connection. And it's something I've worked extensively here on in the Senate. More than 3 years ago, Congress created the $42.5 billion BEAD program to bring broadband services to unserved parts of the country, like those in my state. It was the single largest federal investment in broadband expansion ever made. But to date, it has not connected a single household to the internet. That's right, not $1 of this $42 billion program has gone to connect even one household to the internet. Now, you might ask why. Well, because the Biden administration chose to add a host of conditions to the funding that made it unworkable for many providers like those serving rural areas in my home state of South Dakota. They added union labor and climate requirements. And despite the law itself banning rate regulation, the Biden administration tried to add that too. The Biden administration took a program that promised to advance an important bipartisan priority and overburdened it with rules and mandates. The administration added so many requirements that the program couldn't fulfill its core function, which was connecting households to the internet. So we're in a situation today where you have a $42 billion program that hasn't connected a single household to the internet after, I might add, 3+ years since its enactment. Think about that. $42 billion, 3 years ago, authorized, not a single dollar spent, not a single household connected. Why? Because the Biden administration weighted it down with so much of their liberal wish list agenda that the providers in this country were unable to even use it. Well, now we got a new administration in the White House. And Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick is committed to finally getting this program off the ground and beginning to connect unserved Americans to the internet. This morning, I'm sending a letter to Secretary Lutnick with several of my colleagues in the Commerce Committee urging his department to remove the Biden administration's extraneous requirements that are preventing this program from doing what it was designed to do. We're asking Secretary Lutnick to look at the restrictive labor requirements in the program that disadvantage rural communities and states with few union workers, right-to-work states like mine in South Dakota. We're urging the Commerce Department, I should say, to remove provisions that favor government-owned networks over private investments and guidelines that prioritize certain technologies over others, which contradicts, again, Congress's direction for the program to be technology neutral. And we are urging the elimination of climate change mandates and rate regulation that create unnecessary barriers that slow deployment and increase costs. These regulations undermine the very purpose of the BEAD program. And by reviewing and ultimately eliminating these unnecessary requirements, we can ensure that this funding is finally deployed to expand broadband access to unserved areas quickly and efficiently. I appreciate that President Trump and Secretary Lutnick are both focused on ensuring that this program lives up to its goal. And I look forward to continuing to work with them to eliminate the red tape that has undermined its effectiveness and meant that not a single dollar or single household, single dollar spent or single household connected in 3+ years since its enactment. That's, frankly, it's staggering. The National Telecommunications and Information Administration, or NTIA, which is responsible for administering the BEAD program, will need to be a key partner in that effort. This afternoon, the Commerce Committee is holding a hearing with Ariel Roth, a staffer for the Commerce Committee and President Trump's nominee to lead the NTIA. Ms. Roth is very familiar with the burdens that have weighed down the BEAD program, and I'm looking forward to working with her to remove these barriers to broadband deployment after she's confirmed. Mr. President, many parts of our country have waited a long time for broadband deployment, and the unnecessary and extraneous rules the Biden administration imposed on the BEAD program have only prolonged that wait. It is time. It is high time, Mr. President, to remove these barriers and start getting households connected to the internet.
During his time, Schumer discussed tariffs, Social Security, in a Signal group chat between national security leaders shared with a journalist from The Atlantic magazine.
So first on tariffs, Mr. President. Yesterday, President Trump announced a new round of tariffs of 25% on all auto imports into the United States. But we have no details, no timeline, no plan, only more chaos. Donald Trump's trade war has accomplished only one thing to date: chaos. In the 66 days since Donald Trump has become president, he's had 66 different positions on this issue. One day he says yes to tariffs. The next day he says no. Then the day after he says yes again. He can't make up his mind which countries should have them, which countries shouldn't, how much, what products. It's all one big mull. Donald Trump's tariffs, make no mistake about it. I say to the American people, make no mistake about it. Donald Trump's tariffs are a national sales tax on American families. Tariffs without a plan will only raise prices without anything to show for it. It's like he's playing Russian roulette with the economy. Whatever seems to pop in his mind one day, he talks about. Then the next day it's something else. Chaos. His trade war is sending stock markets crashing, hurting people's retirement, increasing the risk of a recession. A lot of the banks have increased their risk because of Trump's actions, their risk assessments of a recession because of Trump's actions. Consumer confidence is cratering. Yesterday, we learned people's outlook for the economy has hit a 12-year low, even lower than it was during the height of inflation. A 12-year low. And how can anyone feel confident about the economy when Elon Musk is taking a chainsaw to Social Security? How can anyone feel confident about the economy when Donald Trump is imposing tariffs on people? The average credit card debt, meanwhile, surpasses $10,000 for the first time since 2009. With such chaos in the economy, with such chaos in what's going on with tariffs, it's no wonder that the American consumer doesn't have confidence in Donald Trump and the way he's handling the economy. And as a result, the American consumer is being more cautious about spending, keeping a little more money in their pocket just in case something happens, and now it looks like a lot of bad things will. So the economic alarm bells are ringing. Donald Trump is pouring fuel into the fire by launching America into a trade war with no plan whatsoever. And making things even worse, he's cutting both Social Security and the agency that helps give Medicaid and Medicare to people. This morning, the Wall Street Journal reported that Donald Trump and Secretary Kennedy are planning to cut 10,000 jobs at HHS. Let's be very clear what these layoffs represent: an assault on Medicare, an assault on Medicaid, an assault on families and consumers from one corner of the country to the next. When you fire people who provide Medicare and Medicaid, that is the same as a benefit cut. When you fire people who prevent the spread of diseases like measles, America will get sicker. Schools will get sicker. People, families will suffer. Mass layoffs to Medicare workers will not make things more efficient. Mass layoffs to Medicaid workers will not make things more efficient. It is more sabotage, just like the attacks on Social Security. Donald Trump and Secretary Kennedy should reverse this attack on Medicare and Medicaid immediately. And where are our Republican colleagues? They say they want to protect Medicare. Some of them are worried about cutting Medicaid. We heard them say it. Well, when you cut 10,000 employees from HHS, you are cutting Medicare and Medicaid in terms of the benefits people will receive. Similar to what they're doing on Social Security. They don't say outright they're going to eliminate it, but they try to strangle it. They try to strangle it, and the American people suffer. So that happened on Social Security yesterday. Yesterday, after a huge wave of public outrage, the Social Security Administration temporarily delayed its plan to cut phone services for seniors and people with disabilities. But this is only a 2-week delay. This is not stopping it. It's just delaying it because of the outrage, hoping it'll subside. But it won't. Americans from one end of the country to the other want to keep their Social Security. The outrage will not stop because they know that Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Doge want to cut or even eliminate, as Musk said, Social Security. What Donald Trump and Doge are doing to Social Security is strangulation. They are taking a telephone wire and wrapping it around the neck of Social Security. But sadly, it's only the tip of the iceberg of the attack on Social Security. Up to 60% of all regional offices are shutting down. Dozens of field offices will be closed. Wait times will explode. Disability claims will face months of delay. And people will be in danger of losing the benefits they so desperately need. But the administration doesn't care. Listen to this. This is just incredible. It's hard to fathom who's running the show in the Trump administration. Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, thinks that if seniors lose their benefits for a month, they won't mind. He said his mother-in-law wouldn't. Spoken like a true billionaire. Once again, I remind Mr. Lutnick, not everyone has a billionaire son-in-law, and so many people depend on that monthly check for vital things like food and medicine and rent. And what have Senate Republicans done while Donald Trump and Doge take a chainsaw to Social Security? Absolutely nothing. They're quiet as a church mouse. Instead, Senate Republicans are moving forward with the president's nominee to lead Social Security, who is a self-proclaimed Doge person. Let me tell my Republican colleagues, once again, a vote to confirm Frank Bisignano is a vote to cut Social Security. Senate Republicans should think very carefully about their vote, because once the damage is done to Social Security, there's no going back. Now, on the budget. I want to reiterate something I've said about Republican plans to cut taxes for billionaires while slashing Medicaid from millions of people. It sounds as if Senate Republicans will soon go to the parliamentarian to push their so-called current policy baseline gimmick to hide the true cost of their billionaire tax giveaways. This is budgetary hocus pocus. Even Chip Roy called it fairy dust. Republicans can try to use whatever baseline, whatever fake math they want, but the American people and the markets can see right through it. Don't be fooled by this hocus pocus, this current baseline hocus pocus. It'll increase the deficit by $37 trillion over 30 years, and the American people will pay the price in higher interest rates, and American standing in the world will go down. Finally, on Mr. Hegseth and what happened this week. Yesterday, I said Pete Hegseth should be fired from his position as Secretary of Defense. In the short time that Secretary Hegseth has been on the job, he's already shown, no surprise to us, we said this at the hearing, that he lacks the judgment and character to lead America's national defense. What we learned yesterday regarding the information he shared on Signal is shocking. He sent very specific details about military plans over unsecured text messages. Yesterday's revelations were alarming, but they were not enough. We need answers, because more damage may have been done than the public and all of us know. That's why my colleagues and I are calling on the Trump administration to release the full, unredacted text conversation from this Signal chat, including everything communicated after the journalist prudently removed himself. We need to know if anyone if any senior national security official was using his or her personal devices. Ms. Gabbard's silence on this issue, when asked repeatedly in committee, was very, very troubling. And we need to know if there have been other sensitive conversations like this on unsecured channels. Senate Democrats across committees of jurisdiction are taking action. It's encouraging that both Ranking Member Reid and Chairman Wicker are calling for a DOD IG investigation. Now, for the past day, the Trump administration has tied itself into knots about semantics. They're spending all their energy on what counts as classified or not, what counts as a war plan, an attack plan, and on and on and on. But that's utter nonsense. The plain fact is that if the Russians or Iranians or the Houthis had somehow known about these texts, if someone more nefarious than Mr. Goldberg had been added to the text chain, our troops would have been in danger. The mission would have been compromised. And once he got caught, did Secretary Hegseth take responsibility for his shocking lack of judgment, which is what he should have done? Any upstanding Secretary of Defense would have done that. Did he exhibit the kind of leadership Americans expect from the man who may deploy our troops into battle? From the man who may send our family members, our friends, our neighbors into harm's way? Did he accept that responsibility? Nope, he didn't. Instead of accepting responsibility, Secretary Hegseth attacked the journalist. Amazing. Amazing. It's like an Alice in Wonderland world, and called him deceitful. He pointed fingers, he blamed the liberal media, moaned about hoaxes. Mr. Hegseth, this is not a hoax. It's very real and very serious. You should not be in your job.
Thanks for listening to this FedNet podcast, and be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. This program is copyrighted by Federal Network, Incorporated, and provided only for informational and educational purposes. Unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or use of this episode without expressed written permission from FedNet is prohibited.